Welcome back to Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. On today's episode, we discuss the critical role that wildlife commissions and boards play in the oversight of almost every state wildlife agency. While different in every state, commissions are comprised of volunteers that are typically appointed by the governor. To help cover today's topic, I'm joined by conservation royalty, Bobby Martin, outgoing chairman of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, and Joe McPherson, outgoing chairman of the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Commission. Both Bobby and Joe are recent recipients of Frederick C. Walcott Conservationist of the Year Awards. With that introduction, let's bring in today's guests. Mr. Bobby Martin, Mr. Joe McPherson, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl podcast.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And not to be missed, we have John Davis, one of my coworkers with Delta Waterfowl, joining us on the podcast. So we're glad to have everybody. We happen to be at the second annual Delta Waterfowl Expo in Little Rock, Arkansas. So Joe, thank you for making the trek over here from Louisiana. So just for voice recognition, Joe, why don't you say hi?
Hi.
Okay, so if you hear that one, that's Joe. Bobby, how about you?
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So both outgoing commissioners, chair of commissions. Bobby, you for the state of Arkansas. Joe, you for the state of Louisiana, right?
Correct.
Okay. But we're kind of sitting in here in, I'd say, conservation royalty, right? You both have been bestowed an amazing honor, an amazing award. It's the Frederick C. Walcott Conservationist of the Year Award. True?
That's it. And we're excited about it. I don't know how Joe feels. Nobody could receive something like that and leave out the H word, humbled. Certainly humbled to receive it, and learning about it and the reverence that it really carries, particularly as much passion as we all have around conservation and the importance of funding in conservation. And again, what all that's about is it's pretty meaningful to get connected with that. So I'm sure my partner Joe sitting here is as humbled as I am about it. But.
Yeah, tremendous honor, and as Bobby said, anytime you receive an award like this, you recognize how many people are behind it, how many people you work with that make things happen. In my case, everyone else in the world may have known who Frederick Walcott was. I had to Google it, and I think that even made it more meaningful to me when I found out his role in waterfowl conservation and being the initiator of the duck stamp and the resources that it supplied over the years. So I think that made it even more special, and I would encourage anybody to learn who he was and what role he's played in waterfowl conservation.
In full disclosure, Joe, I had to Google it too. I'm kind of embarrassed about that, but at the same time, I've shared it a lot now because there's a lot of unsung heroes, obviously, around history, and a lot to point even young people back to today and realize why we have what we have, and the call of conservation is so strong on all of us. But
so a little background on the award. This is the first ever. This is the first time this award has been given out.
Correct.
So it's a new award, and it's presented to commissioners or board members of state fish and wildlife agencies, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's it's good to be the first.
I hope so. We're going to set the pace,
Right.
maybe, and I'm sure there's a lot of deserving people out there that will follow. So it's exciting to be the first part of it, though.
Yeah. No, I've been with Delta 23 years. John, how long have you been with Delta?
6-7 years this time.
10 with Winchill, maybe? No.
Yeah.
That's what my wife says.
First 20 years ago, but came back 6-7. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. So you're both are very familiar individuals to me, but I'd love for people to get to know you as a human first, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what is the role of a commissioner. Why should sportsmen and women like to know? Why would they want to know what you do for them, or what your peers, existing commissioners, do for you? So, Joe, why don't you take your first crack at it? Let's get to know Joe McPherson. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a volunteer commissioner, as Bobby is for Arkansas. We serve just because of our love of the outdoors and what we do. I started out in conservation as a young businessman in my late 20s, early 30s. Got involved in some conservation projects. One of them needed funding, and so at the age of 32, I went to my local state representative and told him I'd like for him to try to get help with this funding. And I was telling Bobby, he said a state representative can't get that amount of money. It was a Corps of Engineer fix-it-up project where they had destroyed a vital area. And he said, you'd have to get a senator to do that. And I said, well, I can go to my senator, I guess. He said, oh, no, he won't help you. You need to beat him. And so at the age of 32, well, I became a state senator and had the opportunity to serve for 6 terms. And it was really an opportunity to pursue my love of conservation and being able to work on different projects. Of course, along the way, you got to learn about highways and education and corrections and all the other things, but still I had that opportunity to be there and work on numerous conservation projects and all. And after I retired from the state senate, well, I tried to wrap up some of my business projects and all, and the governor of Louisiana at the time, John Bell Edwards, gave me the opportunity to serve on the Wildlife and Fisheries Commission, which was really a wrap-up of what I had been doing all along, and was really an opportunity, and I appreciated that, and I've really enjoyed my time, my educational experience on the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Commission.
So, Joe, do you have a particular passion or skill set that you bring to the Louisiana Commission?
Yeah, I represent those people that would love to be great hunters and great fishermen, but we just get out there and work at it as hard as we can. So, no, but I think in Louisiana we have a vibrant commercial fisheries with the Gulf Coast. So our Constitution allows some of our positions to be dedicated to those commercial resources and the producers of those. I naturally represented the recreational side and have tried to do the best I can. Our first constitutional obligation is to protect the resource, and then once we've accomplished that, then we go on to try to allow the public to use it as properly and wisely as possible and have the opportunity to enjoy it. And of course, Louisiana is a sportsman's paradise. I don't know of any community that you can't drive 30 minutes and be in excellent hunting and fishing in Louisiana.
Well, I also understand that a thank you for your service is deserved. You were an Army Reserve veteran, is that right?
That's correct.
Well, thank you very much for that. Bobby, let's have a go.
All right. Well, much like Joe, although I'm not born in Arkansas, I can't claim that, but I might say at least I got close enough. Have spent all but 12 years of my life, so 62 years in Arkansas. And again, like Joe, the way our state does in terms of the appointment of commissioners, it is a governor appointment. It's a 7-year term for us. It is a volunteer role, so it's not paid, but the rewards are pretty high by the time you're done. And you serve one 7-year term, and that's it.
It is, okay.
Yeah, and that's it. You serve once. I've had people here even now at my retirement and filling out that 7 years ask me, would you do it again? Because it is definitely a labor of love. I kind of joke with people around here that, if you want to have the opportunity to drive 50 to 80,000 miles in a 7-year period, there's a good way to do it being a commissioner, because you do get a chance to get out and around. But my answer has been an easy one for me is, would I do it again? The answer is yes. Would I accept it again? The answer is no, because I think that if there was any way at all, more people could serve in the role of a commissioner and have the opportunity to see what it really means and what the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission itself is really all about. For me, as a young kid, young sportsman growing up, you didn't really ask this, but I'll throw it out there. When I heard Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, it really kind of manifested one image in my mind, a game warden. And that was the only thing I ever really thought about.
Sure.
And, the closer you get a chance to really get into what it takes to enjoy what we have in these natural resources. And Louisiana being a great sportsman paradise, Joe, as you say, and being a neighboring state with our natural resources of Arkansas, these are both two very, very special places. And they're only kept special by agencies like both of the commissions that Joe and I have served on.
So I think that most sportsmen and women probably identify with their biologist or the leader, the trained wildlife manager biologist. Maybe not as familiar. Maybe they are. I'm not sure, John, but maybe but I would expect it to be far less familiar with what is a commission, what's the role. So obviously, you each have a skill set, a background that your respective governors thought would be an asset to conservation. So what do commissioners have in common?
Joe, you want to try?
Well, I think that, and you're right. I think that when if you look at Louisiana and if you put out the acronym LDWF and LDWC, there nobody could tell you the distinction of it, and very people realize it. But in Louisiana, and I think with most commissions, we're the policy setting body. We give direction. We set the rules and regulations. We're the public forum to get input from the public on those regulations, and so it's an extremely important role. And we have staggered terms, as Bobby was saying, and so there's a constant rotation of good people that are like-minded and have good intentions. And with the public input, well, we set a course for the department, biologists and enforcement and the rest to follow and pursue the best for the resource and for the sportsmen and sports fishermen that follow.
Yeah, I would just add that caring for the natural resource. It's about science as much as it is access and use and so forth, and particularly as a commission like Louisiana, like all commissions. I mean, we are the regulatory setting body.
Okay.
But there's an awful lot that goes into those regulations, obviously. Some of it, again, is around protecting the habitat. Some of it's around those things that come about, like today, invasive species of all types. Joe, that's something I know Louisiana fights as much as Arkansas or other states. So it is a very widespread, I'd say, effort and focused mission, if you will. I mentioned public access, which is, again, a big priority when appointed by the governor.
Sure.
He certainly reminded me that's a big part of it. While 95% of the wildlife in Arkansas lives on private land, there's that other part that, again, the commission both owns, manages, and a bigger part co-manages across the state, which through wildlife management areas and et cetera, make sure that the public sportsmen have an opportunity to enjoy resource and the habitats and the wildlife and so forth that we hope we can have all of the state enjoy. And again, there are multiple divisions. I'm not sure exactly how Louisiana maybe is set up. You do have the biologists certainly that are dealing with everything from just pure science into aquatic management and needs. The fisheries as well as wildlife all have their different demands, forest management, et cetera. The list is long. And again, the enforcement, education, outreach, all those things to serve the public are kind of what help make up the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, where I'm speaking from. But as a commissioner, you have an opportunity to really kind of help oversee and support and guide those efforts.
Okay. How accessible are commissioners to the everyday public?
I could show you probably 10,000 emails on my phone. We're getting ready to set new conservation limits for speckled trout. We just did it for redfish. There's one thing that we didn't mention. Even though we're the regulatory bodies and all, I assume Arkansas has the same, but we have legislative oversight. And so the public kind of gets a second bite of the apple. If we pass regulations that they think are too stringent or they think are wrong-handed or whatever, they can go to the legislature and voice their opinions there as well. But we have great working relationship, and I think that we're very accessible. We have public comment periods on all these regulations, and the public seems to know how to access and how to use it very well.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel, I would just throw out that I think it is one of the top orders, really, for a commissioner. You're really representing the public, and you can't do that well if you're not out there among them. We the current director we have, coined common man, common woman conservation. And so commissioners, in our case, we're like Joe, we're available 24/7. So it's not uncommon to get a call at 11:30 at night or 3:30 in the morning about a boat ramp issue or something else. So if they're concerned that things aren't really being taken care of, they have direct access to us. So our numbers are public. And we go, honestly, when I kind of joked about driving the miles and so forth, being out where they are, we hold at least half of our commission meetings somewhere out in the state. So we have the opportunity for town halls, public forums, other accesses for the public to be able to not just talk to us, but talk to us along with the agency staff and so forth. So access to the public, to commissioners, I think it's an imperative. It's vital.
Okay, yeah. Joe, you might have some issues that your commission deals with, not issues, some subjects that your commission might deal with that Bobby's may not, being a coastal state. So we probably think of hunting, fishing regulations, but there's shrimping and alligators. What are some of the more surprising issues for a listener that you might deal with in Louisiana?
Well, that's part of what makes Louisiana so unique is that coastal marsh that we have, that it stops basically when you get to Mississippi, it stops when you get to Texas, or East Texas has a little bit of it, but it provides tremendous waterfowl wintering habitat, where we have a conversion of rice to sugarcane in South Louisiana, which is kind of hurting our overwintering population a little bit. But we brought back the black bear. We're at the point of being able to look at a season now in Louisiana. Bobby just kind of touched on it. We've got some negatives. We've got giant salvania that's killing us. We're spending millions of dollars on an invasive aquatic vegetation that's just horrible, The three states, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, we've just in the past few years had CWD. Louisiana, just for the first time last year, I think we're up to in the low teens on the number of CWD cases. So that's another real problem that we've got to try to address and face, and that's going to take the work of research and science and all. But we got some positive things. We're doing telemetry studies on geese in Louisiana, and as I said, the black bear restoration is a tremendous success story and all. So you take the good and the bad, and you try to make the most of it and do the best you can with it.
Well, it's impressive, the complexity. I've been to commission meetings in both of your states, and looking at the agenda, how do you understand, how can you tackle all of those issues with one group of people? But I suppose it's having good biologists and good managers, surrounding yourself with eagles, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, that's why I said I wish almost everybody could be an Arkansas Game and Fish Commissioner because you get a chance to understand, honestly, the quality of the people that are really caring for the resource. And I would tell you, because I've watched what they do, I've seen when they're doing it, and sometimes it's in the toughest of circumstances in terms of climate, what you're doing in freezing water and whatever it may be. But often they're also doing the tough job with the pressure of a lot of criticism, because a lot of people don't always necessarily understand those tough decisions and those pressure points that come, that if we don't address them well, then they will have lifelong consequences potentially for wildlife and our habitats and so forth. So it is all about the quality of the people. And as I said a while ago, I used the term unsung heroes. That's one of the things I walk away the most, and I think this is indelibly planted in my mind, is the men and the women that every day are doing things that are just untold and unheralded, but we all continue to enjoy.
Very good, very good. I did want to, for the rest of this conversation, obviously Deltas, we call ourselves the Duck Hunters Organization. Our mission is to secure the future of waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. I live and work in Bismarck, North Dakota, kind of the heart of the prairie breeding grounds, a long ways from here. But Louisiana and Arkansas are very near and dear to us. And I think that the prairie pothole region is very near and dear to you guys. So both states, boy, I'm going to phrase this in a question because I have to. A state duck stamp. Arkansas has a state duck stamp. Louisiana has a state duck stamp?
Correct.
Okay. And there is a deliberate connection, a financial connection to funding conservation where your ducks come from. Because I think you have in-state wood duck populations that naturally reproduce here, obviously, but everything else you're relying to come from some point in the north. So can you talk a little bit about, Bobby, why don't you go first? So what is the, from a program standpoint, you guys send money north to propagation areas. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're we're privileged again and blessed to have the opportunity to provide great wintering grounds, but the breeding grounds are critical. And the way these programs work, and particularly, with why we have a state duck stamp, it certainly brings attention for us to be able to track and know and communicate, with those waterfowl sportsmen and so forth, but also to let them know how those dollars are used and where those dollars go. In our case, in particular, we get a lot of our ducks out of Saskatchewan, actually in through your area now. We all know what's happening now with migration shift and so forth. So how we support that habitat north of us is just as vital as things that we do locally here in the state in our own hunting grounds and here in the Delta of Arkansas.
Yeah, we've, like I said, John Davis and I, we pitch in with the relationship with you folks and your staff, and I think I've been doing that since 2002. So it's a very passionate group of folks, very educated. One of your staff leaders, Luke Naylor, did his graduate research with Delta Waterfowl. So I've known Luke for a long time. He's a great guy for everyone listening, and we really appreciate that connection as well. Joe, tell us a little bit about Louisiana's connection to the breeding grounds.
In Louisiana, our duck stamp money is dedicated to go to duck producing conservation organizations. So our only decision is how to divide it up, where the money should go, and of course we're like everybody else, we're looking for the biggest bang for our bucks. And Delta Waterfowl has certainly proven that they can accomplish that. Both of you have done an excellent job of coming down and really making us feel good about our investment in the breeding grounds and how it works. And it's part of what Bobby alluded to. Is part of the satisfaction of serving as a commissioner is a tremendous education. You get the opportunity to be exposed to so much information that is of so much interest to us who enjoy the outdoor and consider ourselves sportsmen.
Well, we appreciate it, and the project that we partner on is wetland protection.
Yep.
As a biologist, if I had to choose between protecting grass or protecting water, I would protect water, because without water, you don't have ducks.
Yep.
And it's easier to put grass back on the landscape. It feels nearly impossible to put water back on the landscape. There's just the land changes. There's I think the momentum of a producer. I drained that wetland. It's just really difficult to put it back, and so I think putting those dollars to securing wetlands is critically important.
Yep, it really is. Yep.
So there's your connection to the breeding grounds, but it's not like things are easy in either of your home states. You have a lot of challenges, I think, with state properties, access, infrastructure. So obviously, hunter-generated dollars support conservation in your state. Bobby, would you talk about some of the challenges that you guys are facing and maybe the successes too?
Yeah, I mean, it's a historic battle too here, right? I mean, I won't get off track maybe this morning, but growing up, and as long as I've been a waterfowler since the age of 9, so I enjoyed my 65th duck season last year, and I've seen those times when Rex Hancock, known for the recovery of Cass River Basin, and that basin was as critical as Okeechobee Swamp or the Florida Keys or something, to the region. That's what it's like for us. The Delta and the prairie of Arkansas, it's fragile. It's changing all the time, and there's a lot of pressure points. To do the kind of things now to continue to, manage the flight, keep the flight in our area. We take a lot of pride in our Green Tree Reservoir, our timber hunting, but, we're blessed with rivers and a water resource that, some people sometimes think is plentiful, but again, it's always got to be just right for the ducks, for the habitat, for the sportsmen. And some of those challenges, we're working hard to try and leverage with the farmers. We have a W. Rice program where we're providing now incentives to, stop fall tillage. We give them an incentive to to be able to, either through rainfall, there's a certain amount that they'll get per acre, and then if it's surface flooded, they get an additional amount. If they allow permitted hunting where people can walk in, so we're improving habitat, increasing habitat, where harvested rice fields and so forth can be used, and to again get surface water, which today it's a little bit tougher to come by. It's harder on farmers to be able to do things that I used to be able to watch and enjoy 20, 30 years ago. So that's a big challenge, in itself. As a commission, we've put in now some pretty large moist soil units. A big one we call Frog Bio that's approaching nearly 5,000 acres. And in fact, those listening around for Arkansas hunters, it's August, but there's already about $1 million in piping on the ground to improve that compound habitat for waterfowl hunting in that part of the state. But it's a constant battle for the natural resource, the habitat, which we all know it's about habitat.
Well, you guys are definitely leading the charge. It's funny. I heard this expression. You can never step in the same stream twice. Well, just the whole point being the world is just constantly changing, and the pressures change, agriculture changes, technology, pricing, human movements across the landscape. It's just constantly changing. So it takes you guys to be leaders like yourselves at the forefront. Joe, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Louisiana from an in-state perspective.
Louisiana has a little bit of a different story in that, when we talk about ducks, we talk about wetlands, whether it's the breeding habitat in the north or whether it's the wintering habitat in the south. And Louisiana is basically, to a large part, the stopping point. You got some ducks that migrate to Mexico, South America, but when they get to Louisiana and the Gulf, well, that's a lot of them stopping point. And, of course, I mentioned earlier about that tremendous marsh that we have. Well, that marsh is eroding at unbelievable rates where we're losing square miles of marsh every year. And we're spending billions of dollars trying to stop that loss currently, but it's still occurring. And so that's a tremendous challenge for us. It's a tremendous challenge for duck habitat to have that. I mentioned that we have conversion of rice land, which is so important in Arkansas, Louisiana, East Texas, to wintering habitat for ducks. And the farmer goes where the cash is. And in Louisiana right now with the subsidies on cane and sugar, well, they're converting a lot of rice land to that. But we have some significant successes. There was a lot of land that was cleared that was original wetland habitat for ducks, and it was cleared in the 60s and 70s when agricultural crops had high prices, and those bottomland hardwoods were cleared. Now, with CRP and WRP, those areas are being replanted. A lot of it's going back into moist soil areas, which is a tremendous accomplishment on behalf of duck habitat in Louisiana.
Joe, I might go back and just talk on Arkansas again. The challenges of how, as you talked about it, agriculture, practices have changed. The human and the wildlife, there's always those pressure points. But we've had for a long time, some of the richest, rivers running down through our state, the White River, the Cache River, the Arkansas River, all part of that Mississippi alluvial valley habitat. And, bottomland hardwoods used to be quite plentiful. And, so pre-settlement, there was a lot of attraction for ducks and particularly mallards, which often will make up 55 to 58% of our population of waterfowl in the state. And over time, losing that bottomland hardwood obviously has put pressure points on the waterfowl and the resources that they need to make sure they get the various habitats, et cetera. So, as now, kind of well known by almost everybody, Arkansas in particular, we've taken on the challenge that's there with our green tree habitat. Our bottomland hardwoods, where we now know that excessive flooding, is causing additional die-off. As a young boy, I know now, pin oak trees or willow oaks that I used to stand against have fallen unnaturally. All those things are, again, part of the work that we have to now do, and it's big work going on in Arkansas to correct some very old infrastructure, 60 years plus old, that now no longer, because of the things you're talking about. The landscape changes, water flow changes. We have big watersheds that now feed into places where the water doesn't now move like it once did, and all those are challenges that the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, with partners who care, like Delta Waterfowl and others, are helping us correct those things for future generations. So it's more than a labor of love. It really is a calling that we've all got to be very serious about. And we're thankful for the partnerships that help us.
Well, many hands make light work. I did want to switch a little bit to the hunter side. So I guess the one background question that I would ask each one of you is that user fees do fund each of your organizations, but I'm not familiar or do user fees, hunter licenses, duck stamps, fishing licenses, all those types of user fees, what percentage of the agency budget comes from user fees in Arkansas?
Well, user fees, in terms of more, you're just thinking about
licenses and maybe some of the taxes.
Stamps and some permits. I don't want to get quoted or quote myself wrong here, so I'm going to do some math pretty heavily. Probably about 17%, something like that. But then there's additional funds that come along that help sort of feed into how those monies go towards the work that we just got through talking about. So that's it. But today Pittman Robinson dollars are a big component. They're really kind of matching up against and helping offset some of the decline we've had in sportsmen. So licensing and fees and permits, while they're still a big piece, the Pittman Robinson dollars that come along now are also a big part of what comes together that allow us to direct and fund those resources towards the work that are the biggest priorities for the state.
Okay, Joe, how about you? How does Louisiana's budget break down?
In Louisiana, we're self-generated funding. We don't receive any money from the state general fund, and then we use those license and fees and various dollars coming in from the sportsman's community and out-of-state license holders to match with Pittman Robertson, Dingle Johnson, Wallop Grove funds to support both our WMAs, which we have over a million acres under management by our department in Louisiana. But between our self-generated revenues and the match of those federal revenues that come into the state, we're completely self-generating. We receive no general fund dollars.
Yeah, we're much the same, Joel. And I may throw in something that we're really proud of in Arkansas. We say thank you to all the Arkansans every time we have a chance. In 1994, we voted in a 1/8 cent conservation sales tax. That's a way that the general public of Arkansas is constantly, if you will, helping support and fund conservation. And those dollars with the things that Joe was talking about for us as well are kind of what makes up the bulk of our funds, along with in the federal grants and things that we often have a chance to get matching funds on.
That's good. I wish my state of North Dakota would do the tax that you were talking about. I think Missouri, Minnesota, or two others.
Missouri does for sure. I'm not sure about Minnesota.
I think Minnesota does.
Again, for us, it's been since 1994, and it's something again that we take a lot of accountability in. But for Arkansas, it is a vital, vital resource. And most importantly, I think about this all the time. I think we're all conservationists. Maybe passive or active, but we're really all conservationists. And, every Arkansan can, think about the fact they do, pay their way and kind of help, enjoy the resources that we all have here in this state that we're so proud of.
Well,
we actually tried that in the Louisiana legislature, trying to follow suit, and it didn't pass. And what that forced us to do is we have a big lag. We have this big cycle of funding because of our dependency on license fees. We have to go back to the legislature, and it seems like it's every 10 years. And instead of doing it incrementally or having it an automatic, we have to have fairly significant increases in our license fees to keep up. We'll be running deficit spending out of our constitutionally dedicated conservation fund, and we'll run a deficit for a number of years, and then we'll pass a pretty significant increase. And we just did that a year ago, and I got to compliment the Louisiana legislature for once again doing that. I led the charge about 10 years before that when I was still a state senator. But it doesn't provide as good a stability as Arkansas and these other states that have passed those taxes dedicated to their agencies.
Bobby, I know you and I have had some interactions on the R3 side, so I understand that's near and dear to you. So for the listener, that's a term we use for the recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters. And you could use that term for anglers, campers, mountain bikers, but for Delta, we use R3 as a way to speak about our hunter recruitment efforts. For duck hunters, what are I'm putting you on the spot, and I hope it's okay, but what are the license trends for in-state duck hunters in Arkansas?
Well, I mean, we've had, unfortunately, a decline, particularly over the last 5-6 years. I mean, we've seen, high single-digit decline, although, during the pandemic, we definitely saw a big peak come back in fishing license in particular, but hunting the same. But we're finding more and more. Our shooting sports programs are helping to kind of bring an introduction to young boys, young girls, into shooting. That sometimes spills over into a first dove hunt, a first duck hunt, whatever. So it's still a pressure point. And one that, we continue to work on with mentored programs, and I'm sure Joe in Louisiana and others do as well. I'm highly passionate about it, and I am maybe here in my latter years, which it almost kind of frustrates me because, again, I was 9 years old when my dad carried me across a rice field in Fair Oaks, Arkansas, right outside of Wynn, and, at that time I had no clue in 1957 about conservation. There's a saying that goes along with conservation that, if you understand, then you can care. And if you can care, then you can help. And if you can help, then all can be saved. I wish I understood, even at the age of 9, that in 1957, all these things we're talking about today, they weren't known. Today, a young boy, a young girl, you take them out, they can begin to understand the habitat and the richness of it, and why for them to have what I had, what I saw, what they want their children in time to see, that's now something that, I think we can all, be a part of discipling, if you will, into young people. So, the R3 effort, it has no age limit. It's young and old. And you can introduce, a 60-year-old as fast as you can a 6-year-old. But those things, I think, are just really, really, really critical. Even though I've retired off of the commission, that work will never cease with me. It is the one thing I'm very dedicated to, and I think it's critical for us to all continue to do, to be able to, enjoy what has meant so much to all of us.
Yeah, very, very well said. Joe, what are some of the trends in Louisiana for in-state hunters?
Bobby mentioned it. COVID was an aberration. I mean, it was, everybody had plenty of time and plenty of money, it seemed like, and so you couldn't find a boat to buy or, anything else. Everybody in license sales just boomed. But in Louisiana, one of the things that we recognize also is recruitment is so important. Bobby and I are old enough, we can remember when, the major forest owners didn't close off their land, they didn't lease it, and there was a major shift. You still got people hunting on those lands, you still got people fishing on private lakes and stuff, but it's excluded to the general public. That's why WMAs and public areas are so important and why we've got to pay so much attention to it. But in Louisiana, we've done a good job with outreach. We've got Women in the Outdoors program. We've got Archery in the Schools program. I could go on and on. We've expanded our public shooting ranges. We're doing a public-private venture right now to try to expand more. And that's all trying to recruit people to bring them into the hunting and fishing sports and let them have a taste. We know if they go out the first time, they're going to come back.
Yeah, as a kid, I never thought we'd be having a conversation about decline in hunting participation. Never thought it. It was my parents, my grandparents, all of the people that I surrounded myself, avid hunters. and fishers. Never would have thought we'd be in this situation, but the world is different. You know, I've come to learn that the world that we grew up in doesn't exist anymore, and so you adapt or perish. And so you appreciate the leadership role that you both play and that your states play in hunter recruitment.
Well, I mean, you just said it, but it's so vital, Joe, that we keep the choice there. You know, I think for young people, I hear a lot of folks argue that, you know, it is modern times. It's a digital device in their hand that's always distracting them and something else. But, you know, kids today are playing year-round sports. They've got more things coming at them than they can all do. But making sure that we give them this choice in the outdoors, and we have men and women that will help, you know, mentor them there is still it's a rewarding opportunity. And I hope anybody that's, you know, enjoying it themselves realizes that we all have an obligation to pay it forward and bring some other people along.
Yeah, one of my favorite programs at Delta is our university hunting program, and we have programs in both of your states. But what we do is we identify universities that have strong wildlife programs, wildlife degree programs. We partner with a professor, and that professor helps us access the non-hunting wildlife students, and we introduce them to, you know, the full gamut of, get them their hunter education, take them to a trap range, take them on a mentored hunt. And this might be the most important part. Teach them how to clean and cook those birds. And then have that, and then host a social. So that's, I think to me that encompasses everything about waterfowl hunting. But in the process, some of those individuals are going to secure a job managing hunters or spending hunter-generated dollars, whether they hunt or not, which most of them do, by the way. They at least have that friendly perspective about hunters when they're making those decisions. And particularly in Arkansas, Luke Naylor is very instrumental with the programs we deliver there.
Yeah, he's a hero here, and again, he's touched a lot of people. He's made a big impact, you know, in partnerships like with you guys and so forth, and with us. I sat down one day and listened to Luke explain moist soil, and I could have sat there for 3 hours. Not because, you know, we just had the time, but it's so interesting and inspiring. And, you know, young people that get introduced to that, they get curious about it. And they get their chance to, you know, first go out once. I'm like Joe, they'll come back.
Well, kind of moving to the end of the funnel, I did want to give you each the opportunity to reflect back upon your role as chair of your respective commissions and share with the listener what you're most proud of. Joe, what are you most proud of reflecting back on your role in the Louisiana Commission?
I don't know that I know of a particular accomplishment other than our work with bringing back the black bear. You know, that's happened during my tenure, and it's been a tremendous success. The work we've done on habitat with Delta Waterfowl and the additional funding that we've been able to generate for y'all would be an accomplishment. There'll be work left there when I leave, and I'm trying to mentor some of the younger fellows that are coming on and to continue the work. And if anything, I hope that I use my background and all to probably bring some leadership abilities and try to expand the workings of our commission to be more involved and take a leadership role in promoting the resources of Louisiana for the benefit of our outdoorsmen.
Well, I recall 2005 you got the Governor's Award for Conservation.
At some point I did, yes.
they all, when they're all so great, they all run together. There's a very humble man right there. Bobby, wow. What are you?
Wow, you know, it is hard. Even though it's only 7 years, it's hard to camp on any one thing. I was the first full-term commissioner to deal with CWD. It came on the year that I was first appointed, and you know, like Joe, I mean, we've got a tremendous black bear population. You know, active hunting. In fact, we just added a new zone this year. You know, in Arkansas, you can kill you know, a trophy class whitetail. You know, 200-point whitetail, an elk, black bear. You can hunt alligators. You can go all the way down. There's a lot that I've been able to see continue to grow and improve. But you know, for me, I think I would land on this. it's very easy inside an agency in a commission to let the work become an episode, meaning every year there's a pressure point. It's salvinia, it's feral hogs, it's some challenge, some goal or whatever, but conservation is a long game. And one of the things I'm most proud of, particularly here right near the end, is when the group of commissioners I serve with, we chose to begin to make some hard decisions to tackle some projects that we know will not finish until long after we're all gone, and the groups that will even follow us. So when we decided to no longer kick the can down the road on the loss of our bottomland hardwoods and tackling the infrastructure challenges and so forth that are there, certainly that's true in our bottomland hardwoods and our forest management, where we were losing, not just a lot of the forest, but even the mixture of the forest, had gone the wrong way because of, water tolerance in species and so forth. Equally so, and it just happens over a long period of time, infrastructure challenges in our waterways, our rivers, our lakes and dams. So we've tackled, 3 really big, I'll call them legacy kind of projects. And it's how I look at the work. We have to have, I think, a long-term vision to manage the limited resources that these agencies are constrained by. But to see now how the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission has set a course on what we call Natural State Tomorrow under Director Austin Booth is work that I know, at least in my time, I will look back on and be very proud that I was among the men and women that made those decisions, that set that course, that will now bring about things to the right outcome, that had we not done it now, we could have possibly lost some of that for a generation.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. John, been a quiet, patient man. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, these guys, they're such a trove of knowledge. I don't know if we're too late. You and I are trained as biologists. So we have a set of facts. We look at those, and decisions are clear. From the outside, I watch you guys, other commissioners across the land. You're not trained as biologists. But what you bring to the table is the ability to make good decisions on behalf of a lot of constituents. If you had a couple minutes, how do you guys go about making your own personal decisions, leading consensus amongst pretty contentious type, each of us in our states, we look to folks like you, and you're supposed to have all the answers and always get it right. Tell us about if we're not backtracking into too serious a thing, how do you make decisions on behalf of hunters and fishers? Are kind of an onerous bunch from time to time.
Wow. Joe being a state senator, he's going to have a better polished answer than I'm going to give you. But things I would say are really important. And this is not a cliche, but it's important that everybody has a voice. And you can have voices heard. And ultimately, tough decisions have to be made. But I think when people have definitely had a chance to be heard, be valued, and look, I've had my mind changed plenty of times. So I think, demonstrating and being open-minded enough, a good enough listener, but again, having the strength to make a tough decision, to stand by it is important. Any of us that have strong opinions, it's just hard to not say that an ego can show up. But, I've always said the difference between stubbornness and conviction is the absence of ego. And when you don't let yourself get too far in it, but your convictions are really what you're guided by, I think often people will certainly come along and support. So, you have to have facts. You've got to make sure that people have been heard and brought along. But at the end of the day, if you're in a leadership position or a position of influence, you've got to be willing to make the tough calls when they're there and stand by them.
The biologists are important to understand the science and to give you the facts that you need to make good decisions. But oftentimes our biologists tell us there's more than one way to reach the right conclusion or to achieve the desired outcome. And then we get the public's input and we try to match the resource with the utilization of that resource in the form of the sportsman. And that's where the decision making come in. And like I said, as a state senator one time when the board lit up 50% green and 50% red, and the Secretary of the Senate looked back at me and was wanting me to give him an up or down to decide to vote on that issue. And I said, well, somebody's getting ready to make a judgment call. And sometimes that's the position we find ourselves in. But it's just being a good listener, being able to listen to our constituencies, and putting the facts first and then making a good judgment call after that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your time.
Joe, one thing, if I can throw in, because I think I might have missed an opportunity earlier, but when you're really asking about commission, how the work gets done, and particularly around, waterfowl. I mean, things that with Delta, I'm a waterfowler. It's one of the big things in Arkansas, obviously, but, I don't know a commission that's not like us, and that is we would never get anywhere near as much done without partnerships. Partnerships are key. They're key in almost every single area of what we do. And again, Delta in particular, and fun being here, and kind of, again, celebrating the partnership. What Delta's doing with the Million Duck campaign is that's bold work and really vital work. And I know, we're glad to be a part of that. All of the people that I know that, are plugging in and hopefully continuing to push along those kind of things. I just wouldn't want that to be being heard and said is none of us in any of these agencies or commissions I know get enough done or would get enough done without great partnerships. And certainly Delta Waterfowl is one of those that are really at the tip of the spear, and we all appreciate that.
Well, I would imagine that a lot of the big NGOs, non-government organizations, DU, National Wild Turkey Federation, National Deer Alliance, I imagine they all play a big role throughout the year in each of your respective states as well.
Yeah, it's all those partnerships that are so important. We talked about the federal funds that flow into the various states from our excise tax dollars, and then for us to pass them on to those NGOs in the form of partnership to actually get the work done. It's invaluable, and y'all have certainly been a tremendous partner with Delta Waterfowl in Louisiana and us being able to utilize those dollars and the tremendous matches that y'all are being able to bring to the table with the little money that we're able to give you through our duck stamp sales.
Well, it is a beautiful partnership. We're putting, membership dollars and giving dollars from Delta to work with hunter-generated dollars from both of your states. So I do think it's a perfect match. We love it. And, again, hopefully take some time, walk around the Expo.
I can't wait to get out there.
See what you can't live
without. A lot of duck calls and goose calls going on.
That's right. That's right.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you both. Appreciate your time, and we'll stay in touch.
All right. Great being with you.
Appreciate the opportunity to be in a Louisiana Mojo booth with Mojo Decoys.
That's right. Yeah,
great Louisiana company.
Yeah, they're sponsoring the podcast booth here at the Expo.
Like a good politician, you never quit plugging.
That's right. All right. Take care, gentlemen.
Thank you.